Okay, so to introduce, my name's Tim Elliot. I'm a senior experience designer for Jade here in the Melbourne office. I'm co-hosting with Christan Sax.
I'm Christian. I'm a design practice strategist for Jade. Been here for 6 years, based in Christchurch, but I'm helping people in New Zealand, Australia, and recently also in the UK to bring their products into the market. And I ran a few of these design sprints already.
Yeah, so Christian and I have got a diverse history and background in design, and design sprints is one of the things that we do as part of our job. Okay, so to innovate or die, we've all heard the talks about disruption and innovation and these sorts of things. But for me, and I think Christian as well, it's about change, and it's about deliberate change and improvement, sometimes incremental, rarely sort of a step change. A context for this is maybe you've got a good idea, you think it's a good one, but you're not sure. Maybe your team's a little bit stuck and you can't quite get the answers you're looking for. Maybe there's conflicting directions. There's usually quite a lot of ambiguity, and if you want to reduce risk, these are things that a design sprint can be useful for in its condensed form, can sort of help you clear up these things in a short amount of time. So, takeaways for today, what you can expect. A, what a design sprint is. B, when to use one. So talk a little bit more about this, about applications. You can also ask questions as well at the end. How a design sprint actually works. Christian will be taking you through a day-by-day breakdown of the activities so you get a clear idea of what it might feel like to go through one. And then what outcomes are possible. Why do this thing? How is it going to help us? And what can we do with whatever it is we come up with afterwards? Okay, so a little bit about us. Jade Software, we've been around 40 years. Not myself personally, but we've worked across a very broad range of industries, financial services, telcos, these sorts of things. We love applying design and technology to these sticky problems with clients, as Christian said, around the world. So head office in Christchurch. We've got offices in Auckland, Dunedin, Sydney, Melbourne, and the UK. So, yeah, quite a broad history and like to help people in many, many ways. Okay, so design sprints, what are they? So it's based around a book, The Design Sprint, written by a guy called Jake Knapp. So Jake worked for the ventures arm of Google Ventures, right? So where they did new enterprise. And they came up with this thing called a design sprint, which was a focused application of various existing design tools and techniques in a format that allowed people to gather and sort things out quickly. So nothing particularly unique about anything inside, but the focus and the way it's utilised has pretty unique outcomes. And so if you think about its origins in those, the context of venture capital and new ventures, then that's sort of the problems where it's really, really useful for. So I recommend picking up the book if you haven't. I'm a big fan of hardcovers. So the design sprint as a validation machine, or as I prefer to think about it, an invalidation machine. So often when these things are applicable, there's a lot of potentials, right? There's a lot of potential avenues, ideas, concepts, thoughts, and needs around this area. And what a design sprint does is allow a diverse group of individuals to come together and to invalidate a lot of these things, to disprove a lot of avenues early and fast, and as a result, ending up with one particular avenue that will be tested and proved with real-world user data at the end of it. So yeah, I like to think of it as an invalidation machine. And also design sprint as a risk filter. So I guess traditionally people might hypothesize a great way to go about things, have an idea, and then spend a significant amount of time and energy building this thing out, whatever that is in your industry, to then finally somewhere down the track find out whether it's applicable or not, and then have to pivot or change. And so there's a rather large risk capital and human expenditure and stuff like this to that sort of approach. So the great thing about a design sprint is, as I said, you get a good broad section of individuals together, and they can explore avenues that wouldn't be done possible within their own minds. And as a result, you can see things coming up and reduce the potential risks that you might have put into a solution that isn't valid. And again, through proof, by testing, everybody can point at something and go, great, yes, we can see nuggets of gold in this, it's worth exploring. So, when do you use one? So design sprints are best when there is a big, scary problem, low level of confidence, high ambiguity. So that's sort of why it started off in new ventures. So we've found it really applicable in new products. And of course, it's in an area of experimentation. If you know that it was going to work, like Mr. Bezos says down below, then it's not an experiment. So it's well suited to these types of problems. Okay, so I'll pass over to Christian here, and he's going to give you an overview and then take you through the design sprint day by day. Over to you, Christian.
So design sprint is essentially a framework that's a rigid time-boxed model to help your team to move from an idea to a tested prototype. And it's quite important because you're working with a team to move forward, not get stuck. We appoint a decision maker before the design sprint. And that's crucial because throughout the design sprint week, you have points where we have to make decisions to move forward. So decision maker is quite important here. Also, because no one knows everything, not even a decision maker, and knowledge is usually locked into people's heads, what we do is we assemble a team, usually between 5 and 8 people of your team for this design sprint. It's a week long, however, it's not a pressure cooker. So the Monday to Wednesday, the quite focused days, they run from 10 to 4:30. We have 1 hour lunches and breaks in between. So that gives you and your team enough time to come in the morning and get all your BAU stuff sorted so you have your head clear for the design sprint ahead. So if you look at the week as an overview, so what we do is we map out your customer journey. On the customer journey, we pick a target that we want to solve, and we define questions we want to answer. We create very different solutions for this problem. We create a new customer journey, create the prototype, and that's the one we test in the very last day. So let's have a look on the Monday. So Monday is all about picking the challenge for the week. So we start off with picking the long-term goals, like what is it we're trying to achieve in this design sprint, like where do we want to be, where are we heading. After that, what we do is we pick what's so-called design sprint questions. So those are the questions that we want to get an answer to at the end of the week. So the whole week focuses on those. After we have them, we map out your customer journey, and we start off with the core team first. So we get it all up on the wall, and once we're happy, we bring your customer experience people and experts in, and they help us to augment all the information they have onto this customer journey on the wall. So that's just making sure that we have all the challenges that we need to have on there. And at the end of the day, that really leaves us in a good spot because the entire team has seen and heard everything there is to know about this customer journey. And also the decision maker knows everything that there is to know. So that means this person can now pick a challenge on this customer journey that we're trying to solve. So if we go to the Tuesday, now we have the challenge. Tuesday is all about creating the very different solutions that could potentially solve it. So if you think about innovation, it is nothing that comes out of a vacuum. It doesn't come out of nothing. So most innovation ideas or innovation, whether incrementally or stepped, are built on existing ideas and concepts. And it's the same here. So for the design sprint, what we're doing in the morning is on the Tuesdays, we have so-called lightning demos. And that's a little homework we gave all the participants on the Monday. So people come in and share their ideas they found or kind of cool things on the web or on apps. So they present to the group, and as they do, we pull out all the key concepts out of these ideas and write them on a whiteboard. And that means we already can start with a library of ideas for the day. The main part of the day is, unlike usually, people do group brainstorms, which is quite different. So the group brainstorms we don't use because we need to have very different ideas. Group brainstorms don't work because we're after diversity. In a group brainstorm, you get usually the loudest person heard. So in design sprints, for instance, what we do is we work on different ideas side by side. So everyone will work on their idea that they think is the best to solve this challenge. So there's a 4-step process, and we're going to guide you and your team through getting from a rough idea to a very fleshed out idea at the end of the day. It's pretty much like a poster. It's self-explanatory, and everyone brought in the best foot forward of how they could solve this problem. And that's a Tuesday. So for the Wednesday, we're now in a really good spot because the entire team has worked on different ideas. And so what happens in the morning is people come in with a cup of coffee and tea, and all the ideas will be up on the wall. And that's great because now they have enough time to go through and read all the ideas, all the different concepts, how people thought this idea could be solved. And that's quite important that they do it also in silence. Now, after they've gone through all of this, we have critique sessions. And in those critique sessions, we're going through each idea and going through all the key concepts, and we're writing them out as well. So this way, we're making sure that we don't miss anything, and everything of the ideas are actually captured. Up next, we then have the team voting on the favorite ideas. And that's really important for the decision maker, because the decision maker can then see where his or her team thinks the most important ideas are, or the ideas with the most potential. Nevertheless, the decision maker is the ultimate judge, and they will pick the winning ideas. And depending what the ideas are, they might form one new customer journey, or we might have 2 customer journeys that have potential to solve it in different ways. Either way is fine. The design sprint can cater for both. So that's Wednesday. On the Thursday, it's probably a really exciting day for your team because they have the day off. And Thursday is all about creating a prototype. And the prototype is created by our designers at Jade. And when we're talking about prototype, it's important to understand what that is. So in essence, it's a realistic looking facade of the key concept that we decided on the Wednesday. And we say, prototype, it needs to be real enough so we can test it with users and people that we bring in. But it has to be small enough also to fit into the 8 hours of the Thursday so we can actually build this thing. We're picking the right tools for the job. And to speed up the process, we often also rope in your marketing team or customer experience people because they have assets or copy, whatever it is, to kind of speed up the process and make the prototype richer. At the same time, we also write the interview script for the Friday, and to make sure we're always on track, the decision maker will check in throughout the day, making sure everything is okay for the Friday. Friday is definitely the highlight of the week because we have a prototype, that is the concept, and then we're bringing people in and we're testing it. So the setup is quite simple. We have 2 rooms, so there's a test room and there's a observation room. In the test room, we have a designer facilitating the sessions, and we bring in 5 participants throughout the day. And it's one-on-one sessions. They usually last between 40 and 60 minutes. And everything that happens in that room, so what people see on the screen and the room itself, audio, everything, we stream to the observation room. And in observation, it will be you and your team and one of our designers. And throughout the sessions, when we have participants in, they will observe what's happening in the sessions and will take notes. And after each session, and at the end of the day in particular, we bring all that knowledge together and see what kind of themes we have found. And this is important because that's where Monday and Tuesday loop up. So on the Friday with these insights, we can then answer the questions, the sprint questions we had on the Monday. And so this is how we go from a concept, an idea, to actually test a prototype, and we get real answers within 1 week. That's a design sprint. Over to you, Tim.
Cool, thanks for that. So there's a nice overview. What does it look like when you've finished a design sprint? There's a remote chance you might look like this fellow who's one of our Jade team in Christchurch. But for me, really, one of the main things there's going to be is a great sense of cohesion amongst you and your team. You will have all approached something in a different manner and worked in ways you haven't done before as a team. And so as a result, you're going to have fresh perspectives. You know, you've experienced new design tools and techniques, usually facilitated by some people like ourselves. So you've got a really nice tacit understanding of what these things are like to go through. And so your team's got this shared knowledge, this shared understanding and concept, so that when it becomes time to move for next steps, to refer back to this thing, to move it within the business, you've got a great solid group and a coherent sort of consensus about where things are and the good and the bad bits of this tested solution. And also there'll be an awareness in the wider community within the business. So there's a little bit of focus on design sprints. You've got all these key people together for a week. You've got these strange people from Jade walking around in your office, but there's also a great opportunity to bring people in, to showcase. We can bring people through at the end of each day or at the end of the sprint to go, hey, this is what we've been up to. This is what we went through. And these are the outcomes, for, you know, better or worse and all the discounted things. So for me, that's what that would look like from an organisational perspective. You've maximised the use of all these really important people's time. And you've got something that's rocking, hopefully. Okay, so now it's on to questions. If anybody would like to answer, ask some. If you find your chat button at the bottom of your window, feel free to pop them in there. Okay, so we've got a first one. 5 days sounds like a very short time to do everything we've described. Is that really a realistic time frame? The answer is yes, for both things. Yes, it's short, and yes, it's a realistic time frame. It really pays off to have someone, well, two people like myself and Christian in there to help facilitate, because it's extraordinarily difficult to enact all of these different tools and techniques in a group that's in a challenging situation, I think.
It's also, maybe adding to that one too, it's also about time boxing, because often what we find when we walk into organizations that some of these processes have been going for months and they're just getting stuck in circular discussions. And what this helps is basically just make a decision and move forward, or say this is our best understanding, our best bet, and just test it, because we can discuss it until, well, infinitely basically. But what we're after is like build something small, cheaply, quick, test it, and see what the result is. And based on this, you can then make, you know, your next step decisions.
Yeah. Okay, so the next one is from T. Kion. Do you have to be co-located? Personally, I would think yes, it certainly helps, because there's such high levels of ambiguity and people are working in new ways that it's to be in the room and to feel what's going on with everybody's quite essential. What are your thoughts, Christian?
Well, yeah, definitely prefer co-location if possible, because also you form a better team connection. It really helps, because often like this kind of team moves that new project forward as well. Also, there's also people out doing remote design sprints, and when they do, you just have to make sure you pick the right digital tools so you can do the whiteboarding and all of this. So it is definitely possible. You just have to cater for, I guess, a bit more time, and you have to be, all digitally available. So it is possible, but if anyway, in the same room always is better, because people working with people, you'll have the best outcome.
Okay. John McCallum asked, why not just buy the book and do it ourselves? It's a great question, John. Thanks for answering that one. As I said, nothing is new with these various design tools and techniques that are in the book, but to be able to effectively apply them requires a lot of skill and practice. And also, because it is a relatively intense environment, it's great to have somebody who's external, or two people who's external, to be able to facilitate this. To have an independent person who's not inside that thing, because you can imagine if it was, say, your project and you're trying to learn new design tools and techniques, and you're going to try and bias this outcome. So that would be my answer.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. It's just like, it's good if you can focus on the, I guess, problem at hand rather than running the show at the same time, because we can focus, we can make sure you go through the process and get the most out of it. You can do it yourself, obviously, but you will then have to juggle both roles, and like you might have to, lead the group at the same time, bring in the ideas and knowledge as well. So it is possible. It's just, I guess, if you have two external facilitators, it helps you focus on what you want to get out of it. There was one question by Martin. What does a prototype look like? That's a good question. It can be all sorts of things. So for most projects that we do, it's some sort of digital app. So that means we're not coding the full app. What we're doing is we're creating a facade. So it looks like an app when you can click on it. So it seems like screen by screen by screen, it moves forward, and that's good enough to test. It doesn't have to be that. It could be, we also tested an apartment, and for that we created brochure there. We created domain, domain.com.au advertising, just to see how people reacted. So there's always ways to prototype it, even if it's a service that's face-to-face.
Okay, the next one from T. Kieran is, does it fail? Yes. But for me, I think with all these things design, even if objectively the prototype we created and tested didn't test well, then that's okay. I mean, because you've discounted that and a lot more things along the way, but what you have done is built that team understanding and cohesion. So what happens at the end of the week where people walk away is the ability to move forward quicker.
I got one question here. Can it be shorter, like 3 days? Yes, it can be. So there's two modes. So if you think of the 5 days, the most intense parts are where we need you for almost a full day is Monday to Wednesday. So this is like, if you only can make people available for that, that's good enough, because Thursday and Friday is mainly run by us, because we create the prototypes and we do the testing. And because we stream the testing, you don't necessarily have to be in observation room. You could be at your desk as well if you have a busy week. Some people do shorten it to 3 days, not 3 weeks. But it depends on the prototype, because sometimes you just need that 1 day to create it. If it's maybe a smaller tweak on an existing system, it's possible. So I would say case by case. Generally 5 days is a good time, but 3 days, we need your team for the first 3 days, but the Thursday and Friday can be then more led by us.
Okay. What about cases where there's a lot of deep domain-specific expertise, e.g. medical applications? That's a good question. For me, I would think these people would be great at expunging their information out of them, but potentially if it was an extraordinarily large scope of the product, maybe a particular feature or an application. They do give an example in the book for a physical product where they bumped up against, they had the basic mechanical design, but we were looking for interaction design with it. So potentially something like that can be good. Obviously, I mean, it can be a very good way to kickstart and to get a lot of the broad level stuff out of these deep experts and to get them in a consensus mode so that you can decide where to delve deeper, I would say.
There's another question here about recruiting test participants and whether you need a design sprint master, like a scrum master, to facilitate the process. So first question around test participants, it's really crucial to have them, because if you don't have 5 people showing up on the Friday, you haven't completed the design sprint and you won't get the answers, more important. So depending on the client's situation or what we're walking into, we quite early investigate whether they have their own network to recruit users or customers. If they can, that's usually one way to go. If not, then we do use external agencies to recruit these people, and we give them a screener, basically with properties that we want, like certain age groups, behavior, etc., and they recruit them for us, and they're getting paid for this. So they usually, people coming in don't do it for free. They usually get a incentive payment between $80 and $100 for this hour. Do you need a? Sorry, Tim, you go.
No, that's okay. Yeah.
The other one was do you need a Scrum Master process to facilitate the process? Well, the more experience you have in running workshops and running design sprints, the better will be the outcome, because you don't have to wrangle the process. You can focus on getting to the answers and getting to the Friday and the testing. So experienced people will help to guide you through this process.
Okay. Franz asked, what do we charge for the week? We'll happily tell you, Franz, get in touch with us, and we'll let you know everything we can about our commercials about this sort of thing. And then also there's sort of two there. How do you control the scope of the prototype? And then how do you test all the scenarios in UI? So quickly, our design team can take weeks, if not months. And so this can be a real benefit of people like Christian and myself, to be able to use our experience to be able to have pre-culled and understand, and we've worked well over time to be able to move teams through design and design with them. So it's one of those mastery things, I think. It is a different way of working, and it relies on people to be extraordinarily communicative and open. And so I guess that's an experience thing. Look, if you wanted to try yourself to speed up your team, you could just time box your team. Say for these next flows or these next prototypes, let's do it in a day. That will give you a feel of what it might feel like. It's possible, but you got to be prepared to be wrong quickly.
Yeah, to add to that one around the scope, it's just like, as I guess from Monday onwards, you're already you only have one day. So it comes back as like, what is the most critical or the most riskiest or the most potential element of this user journey that you want to test? So usually it's something, as Tim said before, it's something new, it's hairy and scary. So this is the one thing we need to test. And if we can fit that as in one day or to prototype, then that's the job done. It does not necessarily have the full journey, but the riskiest element has to be in the prototype, and that's what we focus on. And we make this very clear throughout the process that, we have to cull down if required. There is another question. Are 5 participants enough to get real results? Yes, the answer is definitely yes. This has been tested in the last probably 20 years of digital design. And what happens is essentially with about 5 people, they found you get about 80% of the themes of the problems. And that is a really good result, because if let's say you would test with 20, you would get still the same results, but the themes are just stronger. You see them more often. And what you do when you test with more than 5 people, you see themes recurring. And that's usually a good sign that you have found the most important ones, and it's better to cut it off there, improve your prototype, and test it again instead of putting too many people through it. So it's all about iteration over just cramming masses of people through the first test.
And keep in mind, this is, in the context of new stuff, you'll be iterating and testing. It's better. And then towards the end, when you get this thing more fully formed, you will do big testing if that's required. But 5 is plenty.
Okay.
Following John's question, who should be joining the design sprint team? The experts who are relevant to the field. So apart from the senior stakeholder, I would say the people who have the deepest knowledge and can help you understand all the various potential things in your business. Certainly maybe design, but it depends on the context. Christian, thoughts?
Yeah, and to add to that one, so you need the experts, but you also need the person who can call the shots, so the decider, because this person has to be able to make decisions in the design sprint and have the authority without going to the superiors to check in on the decisions. So they need to have all the authority from their managers to say, yep, you can make those decisions so we can actually move forward. That's quite important. So there's not like that they make decisions, they go out, chat to other people, come back and change their minds. So this person has to be in there making the calls so we can move forward. Otherwise, it will not work. So just conscious of time, I think we pretty much at the end, Tim.
Yeah, I think so. So got people saying thank you. Look, we'll just do an official sign off here. We can stick around for a few minutes and keep answering questions. But please feel free to reach out to Christian and myself. Get in touch with us via email. We'll happily continue to answer these questions for you. Happy to share. We will be sharing this video and the slides. And remember, design sprints are just one tool. It may not be suitable for you right now. And we have a wide range of things and design techniques and tools we use here at Jade. So more than happy to discuss all of this with you and just sort it out.
Cool. Thanks, guys.